Mike Bennett.
If I was going to do a normal three-word Monday, it would be business as usual. However, today is rather special, as we'll discuss as the programme goes on. And our main topic of conversation, last night's fiasco at the closing ceremony of the Commonwealth Games. Now, you know me, Mr. Happy, always Mr. Glassful, but I got to tell you, we are feeling deflated after watching that farce on TV last night. Peter Beattie, if you're listening, there's nothing to resign from, mate, except just engage your brain next time, buddy. Callum Scott on 101 FM. The song is called Give Me Something. Well, we'll certainly do that on this Monday morning. Great to be back in the hot seat at 101 FM. Kicking off the show, as always, with your three-word Mondays. Now, originally, mine was going to be back to reality. However, after last night's closing ceremony stuff up with the Commonwealth Games, I think we need to have a different look at the three-word Mondays. If you would like to describe your day or your weekend in 3 words, that is great. However, my three-word Monday is total stuff up. That's, of course, talking about the fact that the athletes were largely ignored on the TV coverage last night. And we shall discuss that a little bit later on this morning. If you've got an opinion on that, we'd love to hear from you, either via the Facebook page, or you can always give us a ring, 3808-1101. Keep it clean, because obviously it is a family show, but we know a lot of people are very upset this morning, and quite rightly too. From InXS, the song is called Mystified. We'll dedicate that to Peter Beattie this morning because we are all mystified at whoever took the decision to run the Commonwealth Games closing ceremony on TV and not show the athletes coming into the stadium. If you've got an opinion on that, we'd love to hear from you this morning. Do it via the Facebook page, or you can always give us a call right here, 3808-1101. Sheila, listening to us on the Gold Coast, she says, a three-word Monday relating to last night, a complete fiasco. We've got another couple of comments here. Kim Rose says, I turned off after half an hour. Lejean says, didn't bother watching. I really would love to hear your opinion on that. And obviously somebody who's been involved in the games for the past couple of weeks, working in the media relations team, doing a bit of flash quote reporting. I'm hugely disappointed because for me, it's just taken the gloss off what was a fantastic 11 days.
Farewell to my little bit of something blue.
Neil Diamond on a Monday morning, 101 FM. Just had a message. Thanks for your call. Peter from Eagleby, just talking about last night's fiasco at the closing ceremony that, didn't feature any athletes or just a handful of athletes on TV. Peter from Eagleby says, wasted rates money. Thank you, Peter. If you've got an opinion as well, you can give us a call, 3808-1101. It's interesting. Obviously, we've been talking since I came on this morning about what was a very disappointing closing ceremony. And that's no disrespect to any of the artists who were performing last night or any of the kids who had spent months and months rehearsing. It was just the fact that for whatever reason, they decided not to show the athletes come into the stadium on TV. What was your opinion of that?
Yeah, well, I tend to agree with you, Mike. I mean, every other game, so I've brought the athletes on. They work very hard. They're in the spotlight. It's 4 years in preparation for these games.
Sure.
And from an Australian point of view, their athletes did fantastically well. And seeing the marathon events yesterday was unbelievable. And I tend to agree that they should have definitely involved them. That's what I think most people were expecting, and to give them recognition and thank you, and to see their medals and their faces and their all their efforts they've put into providing us with a great few days of entertainment.
And for me, that's what it's all about. I mean, I was really fortunate because I was able to interview the boxers after each bout, and I talked to this young lad from Scotland, and he said, what I'm looking forward to is my mum seeing me on TV, because obviously she was back in Scotland. But I don't know what the coverage was back in the UK, because obviously the host broadcasters controlled that. But if his mum didn't get to see him, what a waste. And I personally feel for all of them, and for my fellow game shapers as well, and I know there's a few of them listening this morning to you guys. I know we're all disappointed. Not so much that we weren't involved, because a few people were involved, but I just think they missed a lot of tricks, and it's taken a lot of the gloss away, in my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I must say that the events that we went to over the period of the games, all the game shapers were fantastic. They really added to the atmosphere, were very helpful, sort of guide us all through the events, and that side of it was really well run.
Yeah, it was great fun. Just while we continue our rant about last night's fiasco of the closing ceremony, why wasn't Kylie there? Okay, I love Kylie, that's fine, everybody knows that. And John Farnham should have been there. And don't say they couldn't afford him. He was at Harrigan's a few weeks ago, for goodness sake. He's not that expensive. I'm sorry, guys. Whoever was behind all of that, you missed a lot of tricks.
Everywhere you go, you always take the weather with you.
Mike Bennett.
Now, here's a man that could have done very well at the closing ceremony last night. By the way, but just having a rant, as we are, I'll probably be doing it all morning about that closing ceremony. I did feel it was a little bit top-heavy when it came to the female artists, just saying. Meant to be the games that had equal male and female, but that didn't really kind of play out last night, did it?
Standing here alone with you.
Good morning to all of my fellow Game Shapers teammates from the fellow Flash Quote reporters. We had our team photograph taken inside the boxing ring the other day, which was absolutely delightful. That was great fun, and one of the highlights for me, I got to meet Jeff Horn, world champion, of course. What a charming fellow, and hopefully we'll be having Jeff on the show in the weeks ahead. But also a legendary boxer called Mary Kom. She won the gold medal for India. She's an amazing lady. She was actually... she works in Parliament. There was a movie made of her life, and she was very humble, very charming, and she could knock your block off as well. But yeah, that was one or two of the highlights for me. I did mention James Blunt was the cue to call, didn't I? Joining me live on the line now, one of my fellow Game Shapers, and somebody else with an opinion on last night. That is Annette Densham. Good morning, Annette.
Good morning, Mike.
And it was really interesting because, you know, one of the things as a fellow game shaper, I don't know how you felt, I was slightly disappointed about the lack of representation for us, the game shapers at the end, but more disgusted by the fact that we did not see the athletes because we were watching My Kitchen Rules.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's really important if you're hungry. But, you know, the athletes train for years to compete in events like this. People flock to the events to see the athletes perform. And we didn't tune in last night to watch a bunch of dignitaries and others pat themselves on the back for a job well done, because it actually wasn't about them.
I mean, how self-indulgent were those speeches? And as for Peter Beattie, who is not even accountable because his job finishes today, how can he get away with that? Oh, he did.
Well, he seems to think that he can just say sorry and that everything is fine. But it really was, I was saying to you before, it was like, you know, going to a really beautiful wedding and then getting a dud reception and seeing drunken mum and dad do their speeches thinking they're really funny and very clever. So, you know, what can we do? I think as viewers, as people who contributed to this game, not just from a volunteer perspective, but, you know, a lot of, you know, our money went into making sure that it happens, is that we let them know that we weren't happy. And if we're going to bid for the Olympic Games in 2032, that maybe we don't get the same people back to make the same mistakes.
Absolutely. And it was really interesting. And you know, I've been involved, as you know, on the media side of things, as you have yourself, for the last 11 days. And there was this confusion about who actually had the rights. Now, Channel 7 had the rights, but they were not the host broadcasters. And as far as I understand, the host broadcasters and Goldot worked together to decide what got shown and what didn't. So I don't know if you saw the end of the show last night when the two InVision presenters made it absolutely clear that they were not happy either on behalf of Channel 7.
I did too. And I think it's almost like now, let's find somebody to blame, and there'll be a lot of buck passing, and I'm not sure that will resolve anything out of it. However, in saying that, to not show the flag bearer come in, you know, the decision to include the Paralympians this year was just insightful and outstanding. And I don't know if you got to see any. I was at the powerlifting, and it's like, oh my, they're amazing individuals with such courage and determination, you know, not unlike any athlete. But we missed all of that. And there's so many people who are so tied up in the games and the emotion of it that I imagine this morning they're feeling a little let down and a little and very disappointed.
Totally deflated. I mean, for me personally, we sat there, current Mrs. Bennett and I sat there watching last night, waiting, and it was like just watching a school concert, to be honest. And I think for the people who were in the stadium, they would not have seen half of what we saw on TV because it was all aerial shots. So it wouldn't have meant anything. For me, the highlight of the entire programme was a 12-year-old kid doing the continuity. I thought he was great.
Well, at least you've got a highlight. That's the main thing.
Indeed.
But, you know, Peter Beattie was saying that they brought the athletes in early, so they weren't standing around doing nothing.
What a load of old tosh.
I think what should have happened is they should have actually have been able to parade in similar to what they did in the opening ceremony, because it's almost like bookending the games for them.
That's what people
all of
want
those
to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I know that when I perform, I like people to clap and cheer for me because it feels good to know that people are watching. It's, you know, that having a big games like this is not just about, you know, being in a closed room performing in your competition and then going home and, you know, having a cup of tea. This is a major international event and people deserve to be acknowledged and recognition for their hard work. But, you know, at the end of the day, I really think what it is, it's just about appeasing, you know, the powers that be and filling their egos.
Well, I think people do need to be accountable. I was really fortunate on Saturday to be all of the gold medal bouts for the boxing, and I interviewed this young lad from India, and I said at the end, because, you know, some of them have decided to go pro, some of them are going for the Olympics, some of them are going for the next Commonwealth Games. I said, what are you looking forward to next? And he said, oh, I'm so looking forward to being on the parade and waving to my mum, who is back in India. Now, I don't know, because obviously we only had the TV coverage that we saw on 7. I don't know what the world feed was showing. I don't know what it was back in the UK. But his family are going to be let down by the fact that their sons won a gold medal and they didn't get to see it. It was just wrong.
It's an interesting point, because I think we forget when we see athletes competing at such a high level as in the Commonwealth Games, that they really are just someone's son, daughter, brother, sister, husband, wife, and that they're just like you and me, although far fitter.
Yes.
that goes without saying, of course.
Yeah, but let's say it anyway.
Let's say it anyway. But they're there to, you know, obviously prove that the hard work they've undertaken in the last 4 years has paid off. But so the people who've also sacrificed for them to be there, and quite often it's, you know, the parents of some of these kids, and for that mum and dad to sit at home or in the stand and go, that's my kid, look at how awesome they are, they've represented their country, which is one of the highest accolades that you can get.
I know. I mean, somebody put on the Facebook page this morning, and we're encouraging comments on there. A lady called Pauline Shepherd put, thanks for shaming Australia to the world. And it's now, instead of us being, wow, was that not a fantastic games? Everybody's going, what a letdown, what an embarrassment, how shocking. And it's taken the edge off. It's taken the gloss away, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, it's funny. I've been looking at some of the tweets and people are going, you know, it was so bad, everyone's leaving.
Yeah.
And, you know, where the overwhelming question is, where are the athletes, and how disrespectful it was not to show Kurt carrying the flag into the stadium. You know, here's an opportunity we had to be filled with national pride, you know, because overall the Games was an awesomely well-run event because of the amazing volunteers, but all of the other people involved. And, yeah, we had a real dud at the end, and it feels like a letdown, doesn't it, Mike?
It does indeed. And thank you so much for chatting to us. Always a pleasure to chat to you on 101 FM, and it's good to get your opinion on that closing ceremony. No doubt we'll have you back in the studio soon to talk about something else.
Pleasure. I'll see you soon.
International Something Day. I'm sure we can find an excuse for you to come in.
International Annette Day, let's create that.
That works for me. Thanks indeed then to Annette Densham. If you would like to have your say this morning, you've still got time to do it. 3808 1101. We are talking about the closing ceremony and the fact that none of us here in Australia got to see the athletes, and surely to goodness that's what it's all about. Great thing about working in live radio, you can tell when it's live. As my guest Margaret Smith will tell you, do you know what? It's all going for a bothered shot this morning, Margaret, isn't it?
It looks like it might be, Mike. Yeah.
Do you know? And this is my fault because I started off having a rant and I haven't really got over it since then. But did you watch the fiasco last night of the closing ceremony?
I have a couple of opinions. I came down here to help my daughter with a business, and I expected the Gold Coast to be party central.
Yeah.
I've got to tell you, Mike, unless I knew the Commonwealth Games was on, there was nothing to show me that this should have been the party of the millennium.
I know.
No advertising, no shops, nothing. That was the first mistake. And
Yeah.
then secondly, how do you make a decision for an athlete when you've never been one? You've never been an elite athlete. You've never won a medal. You don't know what that feels like. I don't know why they didn't draw on the athletes themselves and ask them. When you think you know more than the people who have the knowledge and the expertise, that's a problem. And they created the problem that unfortunately they cannot go back from.
And the
That's
thing
just
is,
my
Margaret,
opinion.
they wouldn't have listened because what I discovered in my living days is the powers that be, they thought that they knew absolutely everything. I had a great experience, I have to say. I loved it. I was working to be able to interview athletes when they come out of the boxing ring is fantastic. But there was a lot of people with clipboards who had very inflated egos. And what I wanted to do, in fact, if maybe people will join me, is to take those clipboards and ram them where the sun doesn't shine, because to be honest, they were just getting the whole concept of you've got rights holders who are Channel 7 who have not been given permission to show the pictures as the host broadcasters. It defies logic. And I was telling one of our other guests, one of the people I interviewed was from India, and he said the biggest thrill he was going to get was his mum seeing him walking around the stadium at the end with his gold medal. Anyway, I'm over it now. I'm not really. I've been
Look,
ranting
I
about it
think
all
it'll
morning.
take a while for this to recover, and I think they just put the wrong people in the job with the most inflated egos, as you say. I can't believe those people stood up on that stage and took up so much time talking about themselves and what they've done. This should have been about the athletes. I know there were a lot of volunteers, and you did an amazing job, but Mike, this is
all about
about
the athletes.
and they did not get what they should have had, which was their moment
Yeah.
of glory.
And
it can't be
at the
taken
end.
back. I'm sorry. I don't care whether he speaks to Kurt. It doesn't matter. You cannot take that back. The mayor, the BT,
honestly,
they got it wrong.
Let's talk about the mayor for a start and his speech. And I'm listening to it, and he goes, "Hey, we did it." I'm thinking, Mr. Tate, what did you personally do, mate? I saw him at the boxing on Saturday night, and it was really interesting because normally when you had so-called dignitaries in the audience, the MCs who were great would make reference to the fact nobody mentioned the fact he was there. So I'm sorry if you're listening, Tom Tate. It's about time you announced your retirement anyway, mate, and you should be ashamed of standing up there and making that speech last night.
The Monday Morning Show with Mike Bennett on Logan City's 101 FM.